Good morning. Welcome to Port City Community Church. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. My name is Laura Lynn Shaw, and I'm on staff here.
Way to get the last name in there.
Well, yes, I did.
I'm
It's
Brett
tricky.
Eddy, and I'm on staff here with the student ministry.
Oh, man.
So, did you have a good weekend?
I did.
Yeah, it's 4th of July weekend.
4th of July weekend. We made it. What'd you do?
Well, we started the weekend off by watching Hamilton.
Oh,
which
yeah.
was
I heard
awesome.
that was free.
If you haven't watched it yet,
amazing.
It is so good. We've listened to the
Yeah.
soundtrack like a couple hundred times, so it was
Okay.
great to finally actually see it.
Yes.
And seeing it gives so much more context to understanding what's going on. Like,
Shocking.
Yeah, I know.
That is really
it makes
a surprise.
makes the music so much more valuable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it live.
Oh, that's
I'm not sure why
fair.
I said it like that. I got choked up. It's just that good.
Yeah,
it
it
was.
is.
I mean, we had to wait and get tickets
Yeah,
and
did
do
you
that
see it
whole
in
bit.
New York?
I saw it in LA.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was worth it. So if you ever have the opportunity to see it live,
Yeah, I wanna see
it's
it
worth
live.
every penny.
But
So
the
it's a good
Disney
one.
Plus version filmed in 2016 was
There you
actually
go.
really, really good. I loved
That's
it.
good.
I almost cried.
Yeah.
Not really. All right. So outside of that, we went to the beach yesterday, which is surprisingly less full than the weekend before.
Yes.
So, and the water was like the Caribbean, so it was
That's what I've heard.
fantastic. Yep.
That's what
And
I've heard.
We did watch fireworks
Mhm.
at an undisclosed location, so I don't get people in trouble for illegal fireworks.
Right.
So,
We-
but we had a great weekend. What'd you do?
Well, I was just gonna say we were at my brother's house, and he lives in a cul-de-sac.
Yep.
And you could stand in the middle of the cul-de-sac and look 360, and there were
Oh.
fireworks everywhere.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
we were on the water. We were on the intercoastal on a dock in a boat.
Okay.
And it was the neighborhood was,
On
shooting
a
them all
dock, on a boat, in
On a
this
dock in a
slip,
boat.
in this type of boat, and this was the name
in
of it.
this very specific
But I
way.
won't say where
yeah,
I was.
but it was cool because you could look north and see them going
Mhm.
off everywhere. Look south, like all
Yeah.
along the water. There was a full moon on the water. It was so
Yes.
cool.
It was a
yesterday.
cool night.
It was a good night.
Yeah.
It was a good weekend. It's not
Yeah.
over yet though. It's still the weekend.
It's still the weekend. We're here. So glad to be together.
yeah.
And we have with us, as promised this morning, we have Stuart and Kellee Hall who are
Yeah.
joining us. And so you may have heard, I almost said back in the fall because it feels like it's been months.
Yeah. It's only
But,
been 4 months.
I know. So Stuart is a friend of Port City Community Church, and he did contract COVID-19.
Yep.
And so we were praying for him, and perhaps you saw all of that, just following his stories and his family stories on social media for a while.
Yes.
As he was quite sick. But, he has spoken here, and I've heard him, and I love to learn from him. But his history with Port City actually goes further back.
He has actually a long history with Port City. We actually got
Yeah.
to know Stuart in the student ministry. We used to go to a camp down in Florida.
Okay.
And the first time we went down there was, I think, 2004. And Stuart was one of the speakers at the camp. And we were like, who is this guy? And so every year when we booked camp, we were like, we want to go Stuart's Week because he was such a dynamic speaker.
Yeah.
Secretly, like I told everybody we're booking him because he's so good for our kids. But I think secretly I wanted to go. Like I wanted to go year Stuart because it was
Secretly
so
he's good for me.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
So we actually got to meet him. I think it was 2007. He was part of a curriculum. He wrote a curriculum based on a book that he and Andy Stanley wrote together.
Okay.
And anybody who subscribed to their curriculum got to go and have lunch with him at camp.
Oh,
so Karina, my wife, and I got to go hang out with Stuart and Kellee Hall, kind of met him there. So our church really kind of got introduced to him through student ministry, but then we started inviting him to speak at our camp at Fuse, which was supposed to start this coming weekend, but we won't go there. We're not going to go there.
Nope.
But yeah, we'd have him come and speak. Really got to know him that way, and then he would come and speak for our church. He's been doing that for years with our adult services, and he came to Overflow. He's speaking to Overflow a lot, so we've really gotten to know. Kind of feel like
part of the
Stuart
family.
is a part of the Port City family, which makes what happened the last couple months. We really felt it as a part of his family. If you didn't know, like Laura Lynn was saying, he contracted COVID-19, and it was kind of a intense thing. He was
I think it I remember thinking, because it was sort of early on in the stay-at-home order and all of that, and it felt like, for me anyway, it really made it real. just everything that was happening, because at that time I didn't know anyone who actually has,
Yeah.
contracted it.
Yeah,
or
and he ended up
anything like
having like a heart attack, and it was like kind of a really scary moment. He was on a ventilator for 27 days.
27 days. I know.
It
That's
was really
so
touch
crazy.
and go. But he recovered.
That's right. And we actually have a video.
We do. We have video
of when he left the ICU.
Yeah.
So this is like an inside look.
Yeah.
Which I think is incredible. Here he is being wheeled out, and I just love that they like line the halls.
Yes, well, they did. Yeah, and Stuart's family, with a lot of influence around the country, they were raising money to feed the staff in the hospital. Yeah, on
I
the
didn't
floor.
know that.
Yeah, they were bringing food in to feed the workers and on the floor. So it was a big celebration.
Yeah.
When Stuart got out, he paraded him down the hallway.
Yeah.
If you watch the rest of this video, and here's a video of him coming home.
Okay.
Where they live.
Yeah.
That's his daughter out there, kind of celebrating him, and it's
I
his
can't even
story.
imagine.
Like, I look forward to hearing him talk
Yeah.
about it. That's what they're going to be talking about this morning with Mike. So Mike is going to be interviewing Stuart and Kellee on stage and kind of hearing the story and kind of how they processed that.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to hearing that.
I'm excited, and Stuart's actually with us for the next 2 weeks as well. He'll be speaking 2 weeks after this, so we're looking forward to that.
Yep.
Also, this is the last week of just our staff gathering at the Wilmington campus.
Yep.
So kind of looking ahead at some other things that are happening around here. And next week is when we start to add volunteers to our services.
Yeah, and so in Wilmington, we're going to be going to a 9 and 11 with volunteers in the room. Again, trying to do things incrementally.
That's right.
Very intentionally at growing our in-person gathering.
Yeah.
And other campuses around the Southeast, Port City campuses, they're going to be doing similar type of gatherings. So it's best to kind of check with your campus to see what the plan is as they work to increase people in the building as well.
It's a lot of I words. Increase incremental, intentional. Be there. So go ahead. I would just say check with your campus.
Yep.
But one other thing that's really exciting that we're looking forward to is for our kids. And so we actually have another video where we get to hear about an opportunity for the kids to experience. We used to call it kids' church when I was growing up. But,
children's church.
Children's church. That's right. But here's Rich and Denise, who are going to tell us a little bit about a very cool opportunity for the kids.
Hey parents, we're excited to let you know about something really cool that we have created just for your kids.
That's right. As parents, God has given you the responsibility to help your children walk with God. And at Port City Community Church, we want to support you as you and your kids learn to walk with God together. Enter Port City Kids Hang 10.
Hang 10 is a program that we have created that brings together lots of fun, laughter, worship, Bible stories, and much more. Yes, your kids will be entertained, but more importantly, Hang 10 will help them to fall in love with our amazing God.
Now, this is a lot like what we try to do on Sundays when we're together, but this is something brand new, and you're going to get to do it at home.
Check it out this Sunday at 8:35 or 10:35 at portcity.tv or anytime on YouTube. Just go to Port City Community Church's YouTube page and find our channel, Port City Kids, and subscribe.
We can't wait for you to see it, and we think your kids are going to love it.
So that's super fun.
Yeah, I love that Hang 10.
Yeah, I didn't know they were naming it that. Like,
I
that's such
know.
a good name.
It's very beachy.
Well, it keeps the water theme going that we have going in our church.
In the Port City. Yeah, that's good.
But so make sure you check that out if you have kids in Grow Zone or Treasure Island. We would love to engage them in that way. So go to the website.
That's right. So you can get it at 8:35, or I've already forgotten the other time. That's terrible. At portcity.tv or on demand on the YouTube channel.
Yep.
So if it doesn't work for you to watch it on Sunday mornings, then you can go to it at another time.
Port City Kids.
That's right. Port City
Well,
Kids.
speaking of ways to connect, we'd love to invite you to fill out the Connect card if you're watching online. If you have any questions or want to know how to stay more connected and get involved at Port City, we'd love to invite you to fill out the Connect card. A staff member will contact you and engage in a conversation about how you can do that.
That's right.
And then during the week, we'd love for you to follow our social media. Go to Instagram, find Port City, follow along. Lots of great content all throughout the week on there. So
that's right. So we are just about getting ready. We're not just getting ready, we are ready to start. We're excited to worship together with you this morning. So if you want to grab your Bibles, grab your journals, and we'll worship together. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, we are so excited to connect this morning, to be together this morning. And we've got a cool service planned today. It's going to look a little bit different. We've got Stuart and Kellee Hall here that Mike's going to be doing an interview with, and so excited for that. But even worship today is going to look a little bit different. We've got Brian here, Olivia, Allison, Melody, and we're just excited just to worship together, to sing songs of truth, to be reminded that our God is faithful today, that his promises are true, that we can cling to those truths in every single season. And so we want to encourage you, whether you're some of our staff in the room this morning or whether you're at home today, we just want to encourage you to cling to this today, to be reminded of this today. And so let's worship together, let's sing together. Here we go. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Promise still stands. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. He will always be enough. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. His promise still stands, we know. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me yet. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed, oh no. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me. Yeah. Oh no. I've seen you move. You move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again.
Like Roland said, we're just excited to be here with you. It's really exciting to have people in the room with us this morning. You know, it's been a weird time, an interesting time in church world to navigate through all that's happening, and it's just exciting for us that the staff is here today. It's exciting for us that all of you are here joining in your homes or wherever. We're gonna sing a song, and the words come directly from Jeremiah 29:11. It says, I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, and plans to give you a hope and a future. And we hear that verse a lot, but the thing that strikes me today is that he says, I'm gonna give you a hope, and I'm gonna give you a future. And it's hard right now looking into the future and seeing all that's happening in our world. But the promise that we can stand on today is that the Lord says, I'm gonna give you hope, and I'm gonna give you future. And that is a place of rest. That is a place of surrender. We're gonna continue to sing, we're gonna continue to worship, and we're gonna stand on that promise that he's given us a hope, and he's given us a future. I invite you to join us in whatever way that looks for you, but just join our hearts together as we worship. You are with me. What can separate us? You are for me. What can stand against us? Your love, it won't let go. I know it won't. And darkness, shadows have no power over me. Fear is empty. Shame has no authority. Your love, it won't let go. Yeah, I know it won't. 'Cause I know your thoughts, your plans for me are good. I know you hold my future and my hope. Your promises never fail. Your promises never fail. Sing of healing. Healing, freedom, as you speak favor over me. Faith is breaking all impossibility. Your name has overcome, your name alone. I know your thoughts, your plans for me are good. I know you hold my future and my hope. Your promises never fail. Your promises never fail. Your promises never fail. Your promises never fail. No, your promises. And I am standing on every promise that you make. I will see it come to pass in your name. Yes, in your name. Jesus, I will trust every word I hear you say. I will see it come to pass in your name. Yes, in your name. So we stand. I am standing on every promise that you make. I will see it come to pass in your name, in your name. Jesus, I will trust every word I hear you say. I will see it come to pass in your name, in your name. Yes, in the name of Jesus. Yes, in the name of Jesus. We stand on your promises. Yes, I am standing on every promise that you make. I will see it come to pass.
Community Church, our posture is not one of fear or of saving some nest egg for the future. It is to be financially positioned to respond to whatever God has for us and whatever circumstance we find ourselves in. So we have been very fortunate to manage really well for a long time. The reality is our giving is down about 20%. And so this is a significant thing for all of us and for you to be aware of. And one of the things that we did when the pandemic first hit, and we were all trying to figure out what is this new reality that we're going to be living in, how do we navigate this? One of the first things that we did as a church is we got with all of our partners that serve the most vulnerable, our ministry partners that serve the most vulnerable in our community, as well as the folks who are most likely to be affected by this. We got together and we figured out how to leverage resources to get money directly to them so that they would be able to really respond appropriately to the needs that they were going to face. And so we began to leverage resources for that. Over the last couple of months, as we realized this is going to be longer term, we've actually gone through and we've really reallocated a lot of our budget. We've made significant cuts in programs that we are no longer providing right now. And then we've also reallocated money to really minister and meet the needs in our city, our region, and in fact, the world. And so I want you to understand this. This is not something that we're trying to do to create a level of fear. We're just saying that we want to be financially positioned to respond. And so those of you who have continued to give faithfully during this time and have been able to, we want to say thank you, because really our generosity as a church is just a collection of the generosity of us as a people. And so we are very grateful for that. Perhaps if you're here and you're not sure, you've never really participated in that way, I'd love to invite you to do that. For me personally, my participation in this church is really one of the most important things that I feel like I get to be a part of and make a difference. And I think that you would share in that as well. There is a link on the chat and on the website that you can go and give. We just love to invite you to participate with us. And again, all of our information we'll make available. You're welcome to email, call, whatever we need to do to help you. We want to be transparent in that and let people know and invite you to be a part of what it is that God is doing and is faithfully doing in and through Port City Community Church. Today, I'm going to stop and pray for us. But again, just want to say thank you for your willingness to participate and to continue to be a part of what it is that God is doing in and through our church. Today, we have Stuart and Kellee Hall with us, and I think it will be really, really a powerful day for us as we get to hear his story, and more importantly, that he and Kellee's story is really what it is that God, I think, has taught them and wants to teach us as we get to share that together. So I'm going to pray for us. And again, if you're there, you can click that link. We would invite you to be a part of financially participating in what God is doing in and through Port City Community Church. And we'll be back out here in just a minute with Stuart and Kellee. Father, thank you. I just want to publicly say we trust you. We confess our dependence on you, but we trust you. We trust your provision, just like we sang. we stand firm on your promises. And your promises are not guarantees that our lives are going to work out perfectly. They are guarantees that you'll be glorified, that you'll be faithful, and you'll be with us, and you are good to us in and through every circumstance or situation. God, I pray that comes across today in these next few moments we have together. Father, I just want to thank you for your faithfulness and worship you for that. And so I just ask, Father, that you would speak to everyone who's listening and participating with us today, and let us be reminded and encouraged and challenged and lifted up today. We thank you for your grace that is sufficient for us in every moment, and we lift all these things to the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, who is our King. Amen. Hey, everybody, again, thanks again for being here with us today. I'm joined with a very familiar face and voice in our church, Stuart Hall and his wife, Kellee. So we want to welcome you guys, and thank you so much for being here. Many of you know and followed along with Stuart and Kellee's story, really their whole family, as he in his battle with COVID-19 and 27 days on a ventilator, 26 days on a ventilator. And we were talking yesterday, and one of the things that as we were entering into this time, part of what we've been talking about as a church is this idea of entering in and posturing ourselves to really be a part of people's lives. And as soon as we heard about this, I know one of the practices that I did personally, because it's easy when people are distant or you see a lot of numbers, you just sort of think of it, oh, it's somebody else or it's them. And having friends, and it was also, Stuart. And so one of the things I would do in my journal as a practice was write down Stuart and Kellee and Grant and Chandler and Cameron, and write your names down, to say your names as I was praying for you guys, and to really realize that when I was here and sometimes unaffected, you were sitting in a parking lot with the blue heart in Stuart's room. And it really impacted me personally. In a lot of ways. And in fact, when we were talking about we had already had Stuart was scheduled to be here to do a series. And for those of you who don't know, Kellee kind of runs his management. I guess that's the best way to say it, and schedules. And so I was trying to be really sensitive, not say, hey, Kellee, I know Stuart was like near death, but like, can he come? So I was trying to be nice. I just said, hey, we're basically planning on not having Stuart here for these 3 weeks. And you sent me back an email and said, oh, he's determined to get to Wilmington, which is not surprising. But so I said, I'm going to drive to Atlanta because I want to see Stuart. And I want to see like if he's okay. And so we did a Zoom call because we didn't work out where I could drive down there, but we did a Zoom call. And I remember when I saw you on the screen, I almost, like it was emotional to see you. I think it was, obviously because of your story, but just having really felt and entered into that personally. So I say that because I think a lot of people in our congregation feel that way. And so to have you here is just a really, 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 it's important for us. It's an honor for us. And so I just want to say thank you guys for being here. And so really just to start, kind of how are you guys doing? And then we can kind of talk about the story and what progressed from there.
I was fine until you showed the video. And there aren't enough words for a sauce.
So, and Kellee, how are you? I know it's like the journey probably in the middle was so acute and just day to day. And then now it's, things kind of seem to be, has it all kind of come back, or like what's the emotion kind of now currently?
Yeah, I think in the midst of everything, you're just in survival mode. And right now, probably for the last month, I would say, maybe a month and a half, we have really, me and my children, the emotions come up in the very craziest times, and we all are in the process of working through the trauma, I guess, that we all experienced at the same time. Stuart feels, I've gotten a new lease on life. Let's go. And all of us are going, hold on. Yeah. We need a moment.
Yeah. So, because you're going to hear, it was like, it wasn't just one day of, it was like up, down. Like it was. Biggest swings as you can possibly get.
It was.
So can you take us back to, I know I was asking Stuart to tell me the story, and you actually said,
yeah. Well,
all I did was lay there.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to, so March the 25th, I started feeling bad. Kellee and I try to walk every day. We had just walked 5 miles, and I just started feeling weird. We didn't really do anything about it until March the 29th and went to the emergency room. One thing that I think people need to remember, this was in the early onset of COVID-19. And the other thing that I think people maybe aren't aware of is that even in the early days, Kellee took me to the emergency room. I got out of our vehicle, and she had to go and sit in the parking lot. But they took me into the emergency room. They didn't have enough tests. I didn't have enough symptoms. They took an x-ray of my chest. Their words exactly were, we're 97% sure you have the COVID virus, but because you don't have enough symptoms and because we don't have enough tests, we're going to send you home to self-quarantine. So I went back home and stayed in my bedroom from that point until the time that I went back to the hospital. I progressively got worse. My fever would spike to 104. Kellee could get it down to 101 with Tylenol, but that was really difficult. April the 3rd, our general physician contacted an infectious disease doctor. That infectious disease doctor prescribed for me what has now become a controversial drug, hydroxychloroquine. And I took it, and for 3 days straight, I didn't sleep. I didn't sleep for 72 hours, and my heart started racing. We were avoiding going back to the hospital because what we knew is that if I get admitted, I'm going to get intubated, and she's not going to be able to be with me. And Kellee kind of harbors a lot of guilt for this, but it wasn't her. I was being hard-headed and stubborn because I didn't want to go back to the hospital. Yeah. But eventually, on early morning, April the 7th, I just finally looked at her and I said, I think we need to go. And even on the way there, it got worse. In fact, she almost stopped at a fire station because she was worried about me. Our son was with us. But I get to the hospital. They do let her come in with me. And a very crazy long story short, I was either having a heart attack or had a heart attack once I got to the hospital. And I'll click out there because the last thing I remember is watching Creed in my bedroom on April the 6th that night. And then the next thing I remember is starting to come out of the fog in ICU. She had to tell me I had a heart attack. Right. I was like, what? But Kellee's right. Kellee, Grant, Chandler, and Cameron experienced all the trauma. I just was out of it. I had some crazy dreams that we won't talk about. But she and our children are the ones that experienced all the trauma.
Yeah. Yes, so go ahead.
So that night when we dropped him off, I had to, as soon as they intubated him, they kicked me out of his room with him. And I went to the waiting room, and nobody came in there. The first person that came to see me was a cardiologist. I'm like, okay. And he said, your husband's either having a heart attack or has had a heart attack. Is it okay if we go in and check it out? I'm like, absolutely. Well, from that point on, I waited. Our other two children had gotten to the parking lot and were waiting with our son out in the parking lot. And they kept checking on me, but of course they couldn't come in. And I didn't really want to go out because I knew I probably wouldn't be able to come back in if I went out. So I waited for, it was probably 2 or 3 hours. And then the cardiologist came back and said, and I was like, could I just get my kids on the phone so you can tell us all at the same time? And he was like, sure. So we were on speakerphone, and he just told us that he had his main artery was 100% blocked. So they put a stent in, and he had lots of fluid also on his heart. So he was also in congestive heart failure. So they put a heart pump and a stent in his main artery, which was so strange to think. But at that time, you didn't know how the virus was affecting the blood. There were some thoughts of it, but nothing was totally out yet. So we just asked him, what are his chances? And he said, if he had just had a heart attack, I'd give him 50%. He said, but the fact that he has COVID and he's been intubated, he said, it's not good. And he said, I'm not really sure what his chances are. And he said, but I am a man of faith. And he goes, at this point, it's time to pray. And he said, that's where we'll do everything we can, but that's where it kind of comes in now. And we were like, okay, I mean, we could do that. And literally, I felt like he wanted to cry and he wanted to give me a hug, but obviously we couldn't do that. So I waited until he got out and went up to ICU. They allowed me to walk up to ICU in the waiting room. I had to sign papers, and then they were like, okay, see you later. So I walked out the door, told my kids where to meet me, and, got in the car with them, and we just all cried, just like, well, this is it. And my older daughter, she goes, can we pray? And I go, absolutely. And like Stuart had said, we had kept it pretty quiet because we live in a small community, and just there was so much unknown. It makes you feel literally like you have leprosy of some sort, and you just didn't want people to be scared. And so we had kept it really quiet. But at that point, I just said, if that's what we've got to do is pray, then I want to let everybody know, please pray with us. So on the way home from the hospital, that's what I did. I just said, all right, on social media, I'm like, okay, here's the deal. We've been dealing with this for 2 weeks now. He's had a heart attack, or he's in the hospital. He needs a miracle. And it was just overwhelming how much the kindness of people came out, and the the post was shared and people were contacting us, and it was just amazing because obviously people couldn't come to you. You couldn't be around. Our family couldn't even come be with us. So we had no family friends. It was just us four nonstop together for that month. And then once we got home, we came in, got everything inside, and I walked to the front and the sun was coming up. And I was like, look at the sunrise. And then I looked outside, and one of our really good friends, which is also a neighbor, she's sitting across our driveway on a curb, and she's just got her Bible open and is just praying and reading scripture and just, out loud. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't, but she's just like, I don't know what else to do. And I think that was everybody. Nobody knew what to do. Everybody wanted to just come and be with you, but you couldn't. And they said at that point, they're watching like their inner organs, and if their kidneys were still functioning, that's a positive sign that he would come out. So that led to one of the nurses that had him in the very beginning came after the weekend, came back to work, and she had made, because that Easter we went out and sat in the parking lot and just talking to him, because it's just like, what else do? You can't be with them, but it was Easter, we wanted to be with them. And so we're just sitting in the parking lot, and I think the nurse had followed us on social media, so she saw that we were sitting in the parking lot. And she made this blue heart when she got back to work that week and put it in his window. But she thought it was a very simple gesture. For us, it was the kindest, it was life-giving. And because it was like, there he is, that's him. Because we knew he was on the 4th floor, we knew he was in room 7, but it's like, where's room 7? And it changed everything for me and my children and for our community and friends that loved him so much, to the point, even like the next weekend they had, and you guys participated, they had an online prayer every 30 minutes and someone sitting in the parking lot every 30 minutes on that Saturday. And those kind of situations are what held me and my children up through the whole process of it all.
And y'all would go pretty much back to the house every night. This was just almost the same thing over and over every day.
Yeah, and we didn't go every day. I started kind of going every day, but we would all four of us would go different times. And it might just be 30 minutes. There's nothing you could really do, but we would just go sit there and talk to him or pray or just sing worship songs. It was just declaring that, God, we need to move. We need to move in room 7.
Yeah.
And because there was nothing else. The doctors were doing everything, and it was all up to God at that point.
Can you tell me, I know, we were talking just the fact that it would be like you get a little bit of good news and then just kind of a crash of news. What was the emotion for you? You're in survival mode. What was kind of tell me, what was it like to go from one extreme to the other? And how were you processing that?
The first time that happened was they extubated him, I think on the 15th of April. And we were just elated. And within 3 hours, the doctor calls back and says, I'm so sorry, but we've had to intubate him again. He got agitated and his oxygen level went down. And I was like, oh, that just your body, everything just drops, your heart, your stomach, everything. But that was how phone calls were. You never knew if you were going to get good news or if you were going to get horrible news, because not only was, his heart an issue, then they found out he had blood clots, then they found out that he had a horrible bacterial infection. His white blood counts were everything. Then the next weekend they thought, and that was the weekend that everybody prayed, they thought they were going to extubate him again. And of course it would be 24 more hours. And about the time that they thought we're going to do it. It was going to be on Monday morning. And for me, Mondays were always like just horrible days for some reason, because it seemed like everything
For everybody,
changed.
Mondays are horrible days.
Everything changed on Monday. But that Sunday night, he had vomited in his ventilator. And come Monday, I had gotten a text on that Friday from our palliative care doctor, and she said, I expect Stuart to not be in ICU when I get back on Monday. That was the last text I got from her on a Friday. And then on Monday, he basically had 6 doctors standing over his bed going, he's dying. What do we do? How is this healthy man dying and we can't figure it out? But it's just depravity. I mean, there's just not a better word to explain. Like, it goes from elation to a depravity, and just a phone call and just a couple hours can be, and you're just having to process that by yourself. Yeah. And we had gotten to the point where we wouldn't send everything out on social media, because a nurse might come in on one shift that had never seen him before, and she's basically he's looking at you like, he's horrible.
Right.
But the nurse that saw him the week before comes in and goes, oh my goodness, he looks so great. So there was so much controversy. So we just finally said, until the doctor tells us, we weren't going to tell other people let everybody know what was actually the status of the day. But it was hard because my children had to process their grief via the world, to see via social media. And it wasn't set up that way, but I just literally wanted people to pray. And then once people started responding, then you kind of felt like you needed to keep it going that way, because people were reaching out to you going, how's he doing? How's he doing? How's he doing?
Like, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
It's always up and down.
And we would FaceTime. You know, he would give us hand motions every once in a while, but he says he doesn't remember it at all. But after that Sunday night that he threw up, I couldn't go back to sleep. And so I woke up that morning and I just walked outside, watched the sunrise. And I just felt like God and I had just a moment of, okay, this is it. This is it. We tried. And I don't think from the beginning, there was nothing inside of me or our children that did not think God could not heal him. We just didn't know if he would. We just didn't know if he would choose to. And Stuart said it a minute ago, but I don't know what the death toll is today. It's probably 130,000, I'm not sure. But we just kept thinking, he's no different than all the thousands of people that have died. There's nothing special about him over.
Continue.
And that, we just couldn't get that out of our head. Like, why would he choose to heal him and not everybody else? And my kids would get very offended when people would say, oh, his testimony is going to be so great. I can't wait to hear, his testimony out of this. And my children were like, that's so cruel. That why would God put him through this to make his testimony better? And I just said, I don't think that. And I finally started telling people, I'm very confident that Stuart would have served God regardless if he had had COVID. I don't think it's going to change who he was or what he's going to do in the future or what he's done in the past. I mean, he was still going to be the same person.
Yeah, I think one of the things, because you really start to, turn, we can talk some about the Stuart coming out, but I would love, because you're this is your husband, and you're coming to grips with the reality that he may not survive. Mm-hmm. And, you're kind of getting a lot of the we know, he's got a testimony, and he's going to be, a lot of the proclamations. And I think y'all were talking about when you had that moment that you actually had kind of resolved.
I had resolved that that it was not, that he wasn't going to survive.
And you had told your children when you were talking about this specifically. Can you recount that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I told my kids, we were standing in the kitchen, and I just said, I just want you guys to know that if Dad doesn't survive, that I'm okay. And I have been loved well, and I have felt more love in my life from him than 99.9% of the marriages in the world. And I am content. And I just wanted them to know and to feel how special our marriage was and our relationship, and that I had no regrets and that he had no regrets. And they all looked at me and said, Mom, we know he loved you well, and we know you felt that way. So I just wanted them to have a peace of mind that regardless of if it did go the way we all felt, and I think we all felt, I think in the outside world that people were praying, we were so grateful. And like I said, that held us up many a days. But I don't think people understood how bad it was, and how the phone calls would come, and the different doctors, and how there would just be like no hope.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons, we talked about this, and we didn't want to, kind of go, here's Stuart's testimony, right? That's not, but what I thought was so powerful about that for you and Kellee, I think it really is incredibly, one is it's profound, but it's incredibly important for those of us who follow Christ and are walking in faith to recognize that I'm going to be okay even if the worst happens. That doesn't jeopardize my faith. And that's what I really feel and believe we need to kind of lean into and wrestle with, because so often Stuart, I think that's what you're going to be talking about the next couple of weeks. And so if you guys want to jump in there and kind of pick up from there.
Yeah, we had already been having major discussions before I got sick about just what God was kind of stirring in both of us, that we have this propensity as the church in America to have placed our faith and trust in things that God hasn't necessarily promised us. That, I don't think our faith falls apart because of doubt as much as it does of us placing our faith in the wrong things. And the way Kellee has inspired me, and our children even have inspired me with this whole health crisis, is that it changes the way you pray. Because what we want to pray, and Kellee and I get tickled at this sometimes, because we actually, even since I've gotten out of the hospital, have been in environments where a faith leader almost yells at God while they're praying, declaring, and, this is what you're going to do. Well, this is a heads up to all of us that are watching and listening. God doesn't promise us that he'll heal us. Says that he can, doesn't promise us that he will. And that changes the way you pray, because now you have to become submissive to this all-knowing, all-powerful God. To make a decision, will you choose to heal him? We know you can. We're not sure you will, which means he's still God. The other way is, this is what we know you're going to do, so you've made yourself God. And the thing that she has just blown me away by is through this whole ordeal, she consistently was going, I don't know if you will, but I believe that you can, and that's what I'm going to trust. Even to the point that morning on the porch, she just went, okay, you can have him if that's what you choose. But it's such a big deal to all of us in the room, and those of you that are watching and listening, because I'm convinced, Mike, that there are brokenhearted people all across the country who have believed God for something that he never promised them. And now they're absolutely wrecked because God didn't come through. And that's just a dangerous place to live.
And the thing, too, I think what's so powerful, and I think your story just illustrates that, is that when we become so obsessed with trying to figure out how this is going to work out the way we want, that we actually miss so much of what God is actually doing in those moments that I think are some of the most precious things that we experience,
Yes,
trying to get out from underneath something.
I heard I read a quote from a Romanian French playwright, and he says that over-explanation separates us from astonishment. And what we want to do, especially as Jesus people, is we want an explanation for everything. And the harsh reality, all of us love miracles until we need one. You really don't want to have to go through a time where you need a miracle. Yeah. I promise you, she and our children would love to have that month and a half back but then to try to over-explain what happened, except to be able to say, God. Right. And you're right. Over-explaining means that you miss the wonder and the astonishment of what happened. But miracles are happening all around us too. It's even that powerful. C.S. Lewis said that miracles are a story written in small letters that the world has been telling in letters too large for some of us to see. The fact that, for example, right now while we're talking, we are on a blue marble, rocketing through the universe at 67,000 miles an hour, rotating 1,000 miles around a gas ball, a ball of fire, while there's a moon that controls the sea, and you don't believe in a miracle?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Do you look at the woman who's sitting beside me? This is a miracle. Miracles happen all the time. Yeah. But the problem is we try to over-explain it. And I'm just so grateful that Kellee and our children went, we can't explain this. And we're also not going to try to explain if God chooses to take him.
I think that to me was what was so powerful, is that faith isn't contingent on that outcome. It's contingent on God, on what God, who he is and what he has said and what he loves and has availed life to us.
I didn't want our children to, as we walked through this, I didn't want them looking at me going, I was only going to worship God if he did heal him. Yep. You know, I wanted them to see that my relationship, my need of a relationship to God was regardless of whatever the outcome might be and whatever the day might include. Now, was I freaked out? Was I stressed out? Yes. I mean, my attention span was, I couldn't hold it, and I would just have to pull myself away and either read. I mean, I would just quote out loud Psalms 91 and just go, I declare. I mean, anything that I could think to do, I was doing it. Yeah. But I knew God had never promised me that. Right. He had not. People were calling me going, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. And I'm like, well, it's good that you think that, but God has not told me that, and he hasn't promised me that.
And it was more, I assume, more than just positive thinking. It was doing something deep in when you're declaring these. You're not just trying to talk yourself into something. There's like some soul-sustaining power happening.
Yes, and to know that I knew that power. Yeah. I knew it was possible, but is that what he was going to do?
Right. I mean, even in sustaining you with that uncertainty.
And I did feel that he would, whenever I'd pull away and I'm like, I need you right now, I would feel it. I would feel the presence and the calmness. But, you know, that was numerous times a day, just having to go through that.
was this may be a little bit more than what you bargained for, but did the emotion range, did it get to anger? How would you describe the range?
I didn't feel, I felt anger only towards the world.
Okay.
Explain
Yeah,
why.
I will. Like,
Okay.
for instance, here's the way that I felt. The first time we got out of quarantine and were able to go to Target for the first time, I literally cried the entire time we were in the store because
There was no toilet paper.
there probably wasn't any toilet paper, but the reason why was because everyone there thought the world's just still going on, like nothing's ever happened. Majority of people weren't wearing masks.